Open, but to leave the box of Pandora open as well.
Okay. Okay, we can keep it open. Any other question? We have still a few minutes. Please.
I wanted to ask about something that was mentioned at the very beginning of this panel, and that is the crime of aggression, something that was obviously absent from the ICTY's statute and mandate. I wanted to ask the views of the panelists whether the contribution of the ICTY jurisprudence perhaps contributed to this next step in the evolution of this global culture ending in impunity that was mentioned on the panel in addressing action that could constitute the crime of aggression, and also the views of the panelists on the fittingness of or the rightness, I don't know, the fittingness of having this crime in the same league as the other the core international crimes, considering the difference in nature between the crime of, or acts that could constitute the crime of aggression and acts that could constitute genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. Thank you.
It's difficult to answer on the contribution, possible contribution of the ICTY on a matter in which the ICTY had no jurisdiction, actually, and right or wrong, whether it was the decision of the Security Council not to give jurisdiction on this. Certainly, what the ICTY has definitely done is to clarify that irrespective of the reasons or the responsibilities in starting a conflict, in the responsibilities for the conflict, whether international or non-international, the crimes coming within the jurisdiction of the tribunal have to be dealt as such. And there is no excuse in the reasons given for attacking as excuse for the crimes committed. Actually, this is certainly something that the tribunal has worked on, but as to the crimes of aggression as such, is defining the crimes of aggression is more difficult, actually.
Yeah, may I add something? Because, of course, you are right, but there is a worrying development, I say, at the ICTY on joint criminal enterprise. Now, I didn't revise recently the most recent cases, but if I'm not wrong, a joint criminal enterprise has been also interpreted where the common purpose is the design to build a great Serbia, which is very much linked to the political idea behind the conflict in the former Yugoslavia, as if this was a criminal common purpose. So if you have a bit of fantasy, you might think that what is now envisaged under the doctrine of joint criminal enterprise is the fact that by having this common criminal design of creating this greater Serbia, in a way you don't go so far. But I mean, I don't know if it is unconscious in the jurisprudence of the tribunal, but certainly there is some tendency. I don't know what you think, but it's a big Pandora box, I'd say.
It's difficult for me to pronounce, yeah, because as a judge, you see, I know that there are position interpretations that have been given, but it's not for me to endorse any of them, I guess.
You are not like the ICJ in the advisory opinion on nuclear weapons, which tried to simply confuse use at parliament, use in parallel, so that not all parties are always equal. Some acting in self-defense in extreme circumstances when their survival is at issue, the court cannot say whether use of nuclear weapons is illegal or not. So for you, it is always it is illegal to torture to commit other war crimes or crimes against humanity.
I would tend to say so, unless the the behavior may be justified under criminal law. But that was a different issue. The tools of criminal law, actually. There are reasons justifying a conduct. So, any other question? If it is not the case, we can conclude this final panel, which has completed the activity during these 2 days, which has been very. I will not conclude on the conference itself. That will be the responsibility of the president to do that. But I think that we have explored, if not all, many of the areas of the legacy. And today, this afternoon, we dealt with many of them. You can also see that the legacy of the tribunal, it goes really in many directions, not just in promoting other courts, as it has done, as has been the case, and not only going to domestic courts, but going to a number of other bodies that make use of the case law of the tribunal, of the clarification of international criminal law by the tribunal for different purposes. In one of the first years of this tribunal, a small publication was issued, I think that Nina was behind it, whose title was A Path to the Hague. And it was invoking criminal justice, the Hague as the center of criminal justice, as the way to promote criminal justice. I think that today we could perhaps start thinking of something that is from the Hague to the world for criminal justice. And this is certainly our legacy in this, as dealt in this conference. Well, I conclude here, and I think we have a concluding session. We leave the place to the concluding session.
Thank you very much. I hope you like the temperature in the room. For those who find it too hot, I promise we'll finish before they turn as red as lobsters. We are going to listen to the 3 concluding remarks. I'll call the speakers in turn. And I think the first speaker is Mrs. Marjolein de Jong. She has been living abroad a number of years, I understand. And as soon as she returned to The Hague, that was to be elected as a member of the Municipal Council. The Alderman for Culture, City Marketing and International Affairs, Ms. de Jong, is also a Deputy Mayor of the City of The Hague. Ms. de Jong.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure and my honors, ladies and gentlemen, also in my function as Vice Mayor of the City of The Hague, to extend a warm welcome to you. And as Deputy Mayor for International Affairs, it's my honor and pleasure to extend a few words to you as we are about to close the Global Legacy Conference which has been organized for the second consecutive time in The Hague. The Hague, as we call it, and as I presume the whole world will call it, the International City of Peace and Justice. I do hope that you can look back at 2 interesting and inspiring days. When I looked at the program, I saw a whole lot, an impressive lot of interesting speakers and renowned moderators, so I trust nobody has been let down. The ICTY, as you call it, and I think here in The Hague, the local people call it the ICTY, or just the Yugoslavia Tribunal, has accomplished a lot in the last 2 decades. Their jurisprudential contribution is enormous, and so is the impact of the tribunal of the future of global justice and the advancement and enforcement of human rights. The Hague, again, the International City of Peace and Justice, who's host to over 130 international organizations, and we are very proud to have the ICTY in our city. There's another legacy of the ICTY that we feel that's very important. As I said, International City of Peace and Justice, and the headquarters of the ICTY is on the Churchillplein, on the Churchill Square. And this square has become more or less the embodiment of peace and justice when it comes to crimes that have been committed in the former Yugoslavia. The victims of those monstrous crimes and the academic world look to The Hague and await the verdicts of the ICTY. On the other hand, we also see a growing interest among the inhabitants of The Hague when it comes to the work of the tribunal and the courts in our city. Last September, again, we organized our yearly International Open Day, and the City of The Hague works with all the international organizations and the embassies in our cities so that both the inhabitants of The Hague and visitors from outside can experience from the inside what the work of the tribunals and courts are all about, the importance of that work. And there was an overwhelming interest this year to visit the ICTY and to listen to the prosecutor Brammertz and Judge Ori. A sign to us that the work of the tribunal appeals to the imagination of many. I would also like to take this opportunity to briefly draw your attention to the academic aspect of The Hague as an international city of peace and justice because of the recently established The Hague Institute of Global Justice that plays an important role in the academic debate on peace and justice. It was established by The Hague Academic Coalition, by the City of The Hague, by The Hague Conference on Private International Law, and by The Hague Center for Strategic Studies, and of course supported by the Dutch government. The Institute is dedicated to the promotion of knowledge of law and justice in relation to peace, security, and social and economic development. And the objective, as you might know, is to develop an integrated approach towards issues where the lack of law and justice could lead to political, military, social or economic instability and inequality. And this establishment of the Institute of Global Justice came at the right moment because recent developments in the Middle East demonstrate that the struggle for freedom and justice is universal and has nothing to do with culture or religion. It is global and it's a human phenomenon. Ladies and gentlemen, the work that the ICTY has done will have a lasting impact on future developments. And I am afraid that in the near future, conflicts will continue to affect the lives of innocent citizens, like they have done for so many centuries. One closing remark. I do hope that you have, aside from all the important academic work that you have taken upon yourselves in the last 2 days, still had time, or will have some time to enjoy our cities, to enjoy our city. We are host to numerous cultural and culinary institutions. You might have heard from Vermeer's The Girl with the Pearl Earring, resides in our city, in the beautiful Mauritshuis. You might want to visit Mondriaan's Boogie Woogie at the Gemeentemuseum, 500 meters down the road. Take in a few culinary delights at Chinatown, or go to one of the top 3 dance companies of the world, here in The Hague, the Nederlands Danstheater. You do understand I'm also responsible for cultural affairs in the cities, and I know that experts and culture are very close and go hand in hand. Anyhow, I wish you all well. I wish to those who came from outside The Hague safe travels, and I do hope to see you again and welcome you again in The Hague. Thank you very much.
I'm pleased to turn the floor now to Mr. Ed Kronenburg. He is the Secretary General of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is a position he came to after holding various senior management positions in various international organizations, such as, I understand, the OECD and the NATO. Mr. Kronenburg.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a great pleasure to see so many distinguished guests back in The Hague today and also yesterday to continue the discussions on the global legacy of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And I would like to thank the ICTY for organizing this conference, which will prove to be instrumental in safeguarding its important legacy. I would also like to express my great appreciation for the achievements of President Robinson over the past 2 years, and at the same time I'd like to congratulate Judge Meron on his election as the ICTY's new president. And I look forward to continuing the outstanding cooperation between the Tribunal and the Netherlands. The Dutch government is pleased to be co-sponsor of this important conference. We have a special relationship with the ICTY, and if I say we, it's not just the Dutch government, it's also the city of The Hague, as the Vice Mayor just pointed out, and of course also very important, the inhabitants of the city of The Hague. Because the ICTY was the first major international criminal tribunal since the Nuremberg and Tokyo trials, and also the first international criminal tribunal to be located in The Hague. Apart from being a milestone in the development of international criminal law, the ICTY has played an important role in the positioning of The Hague as the international city of peace and justice. In the last 2 decades, the world has changed from a place where it was virtually impossible to bring perpetrators of heinous crimes to justice into a place where such individuals are increasingly faced with criminal proceedings. The ICTY's success has been crucial in this development. On the 21st of October, I was saddened by the news that its first president, the eminent scholar Antonio Cassese, passed away. I'm sure I can speak for all of us when I say that we are grateful for his immense contribution to the field of international criminal law. The ICTY would not have been the same and as influential without him. Ladies and gentlemen, last year I applauded the ICTY for its outstanding contribution to the international fight against impunity. With the arrests of Mladic and Hadžić this year, all of the 161 persons indicted have been brought before the tribunal. The ICTY has exceeded all expectations and sent a powerful warning to the entire world that justice will eventually catch up with perpetrators of the most serious crimes. As has been discussed over the past 2 days, the legacy of the ICTY stretches far beyond the legal proceedings in its courtrooms. The ICTY has contributed in many ways to the development of international criminal law and has paved the way for the establishment of subsequent international criminal tribunals. It has also helped to strengthen national capacities in the fight against impunity. The Netherlands is a staunch supporter of this two-track approach and will remain so. Peace, of course, is more than simply the absence of conflict, as we all know. Lasting peace requires reconciliation. Only in the future will tell to what extent the ICTY has been successful in achieving its second objective, bringing about reconciliation. And in this regard, the Tribunal's outreach program, encompassing multiple transitional justice mechanisms, will continue to play a pivotal part. Transitional justice aims to build a bridge between the past and the future by dealing with past human rights abuses while trying to ensure that such abuses will never happen again. Together, we are now preparing the transition to the residual mechanism. The Netherlands is honored to host this institution. We will continue to focus our efforts on maximizing the ICTY's legacy, both through our commitment to its completion strategy and with regard to the establishment of the residual mechanism. In short, we will remain committed to the ICTY and continue to support its contribution to lasting peace and stability. Thank you very much.
And of course, the concluding words of this conference will be uttered by His Excellency Judge Patrick Robinson, the outgoing ICTY President. As you know, he will hand over tonight, at midnight, the presidency to Judge Meron, so that his remarks constitute his last public address in his capacity as the ICTY President. Judge Robinson.
Thank you very much, Christian. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you all for participating in this conference. I see this conference as a recognition of the important pioneering role of the tribunal and also a recognition of the multifaceted legacy that it leaves. I have no hesitation in coming to the conclusion that the conference was a resounding success. And that success was due not only to the expertise and the very high caliber of our moderators and panelists, but also to the eagerness of the audience to participate in the discussion of the many issues debated. In that respect, I must note the eminence and the intellectual richness of our audience participants. So what did we learn from the conference discussions? I think we can all agree that we have confirmed the tremendous and profound impact of the tribunal on all facets of international criminal justice. The work of the tribunal has identified, not altogether without controversy, as our debate revealed, the scope of customary international humanitarian law. It has also identified with unprecedented specificity the precise elements of the core crimes of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And these elements have been endorsed in the jurisprudence of other international criminal tribunals and in the domestic prosecution of war crimes. We also had an interesting discussion on the procedural law of the tribunal, with many expressing the view that the stress on the classification of the procedures as of common law or civil law origin was misplaced. And finally, we considered the global impact of the tribunal on the advancement of human rights. The tribunal was the first international institution after Nuremberg that called individuals to account for atrocities committed during armed conflict. It gave victims of those crimes a means of seeking redress, and it dispensed justice. It also inspired the establishment of other international and mixed tribunals in places which cried out for justice, such as Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Cambodia. The tribunal also had a resonating impact on the decision of the international community to establish a permanent international criminal court. The success of this conference has particular significance for me because tomorrow, the 17th of November, I demit office as president of this tribunal, and my successor, Ted Meron, will take up the mantle of president for the second time. For those of you who do not recall, Judge Meron served as president of the tribunal between 2003 and 2005. I am indeed gratified that both legacy conferences, regional and global, were hosted during my presidency. And during both conferences, the tribunal has been enriched through hearing your reflections and views of the importance and impact of the tribunal's work. Your interest in and continuing commitment to the work of the tribunal is inspiring to all of us charged with its completion. Ladies and gentlemen, at the opening of the conference, I had occasion to mention the generosity of the donors and their foresight in these very difficult economic times of supporting the conference as something very worthwhile. This conference was funded entirely by voluntary contributions, and I cannot express forcefully enough my gratitude to the governments of the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and the Republic of Korea, as well as the municipality of The Hague and the Open Society Justice Initiative for making it possible. Much has been said about the conference, and I have received much commendation. Quite often, civil servants work in the background without enough recognition. And I want to tell you very, very clearly today that the person who is responsible for the success of this conference is my chef de cabinet, Gabriel McIntyre. It was Gabriel who conceived the whole notion of a legacy conference and divided it up into a regional legacy conference and a global legacy conference. It was Gabriel who stood by my side when doubts were expressed by many, including the United Nations headquarters itself, who surprisingly questioned the hosting of a legacy conference by this tribunal. I trust they have changed their minds. It was Gabriel who stood by my side when we had doubts expressed internally about the feasibility of a conference of this kind. And Gabriel therefore deserves all the praise for the conception and the implementation, the success of this very great endeavor. Might I also mention Diane Brown, my legacy officer, who worked putting the nuts and bolts together for this conference. And of course, I want to mention Christian Chatier, who was formerly head of the media operations at the tribunal and who has taken his not inconsiderable talents to, I think, greener pastures, to academia. They will benefit from his immense talent. I also wish to mention the head of outreach, Nirmal Yelisic, the registrar's assistants, Isabel Lambert, Yolande Collot, the assistants in the chambers, Pierre Galliner and Mia Diaz-Premont. Also Maya Magellan, who is the special assistant to the chief of administrator, Kevin Hughes, the legacy officer in the registry, Leslie Hermel, who is in publications, and Michael Sylvester, the budget officer. To all these and more, I say a very big thank you for a job well done. I will be issuing a report summarizing the conclusions of this conference in due course, and my report, as well as the full transcription and videos of the conference, will be uploaded onto the Tribunal's website as soon as they are available. I thank you all once again for your attendance and for your valuable contribution. Your support remains critical as the Tribunal winds down its work, and we hope to have further opportunities for fruitful collaboration with you in the future. Thank you.